Hello, everybody. It's Bruce Rorgan. It's the Bruce Rorgan Show. This is episode 0. It might be the first. It might be the last. We're going to find out. Now, today we're doing Something About Mary, episode 10. Oh, wait, no, we're not. We're doing Something About David, episode 1. We're not going to look at Mary Lincoln's Facebook posts or Mary Lincoln's tweets today. We are going to look at a lawyer's tweets that started tweeting last night, about 13 hours ago. And we're going to try to go through them chronologically because I think there are some intellectually interesting takeaways that we can learn that are unique versus just the back and forth details of what is otherwise an interesting court case. So we're going to try and do that here. Let's get into it. I'm going to scroll up a little bit just to... This guy, he has a nice sort of sunset video here on the Sea of Cortez in Mexico, but it's a little jarring and seasickness inducing. So I'm going to try and scroll up to avoid that a little bit. And let's see what happens. So 13 hours ago, this lawyer, David S. Gingras, tweeted at Lethal Lauren 904. Now, Lethal Lauren 13 hours ago was doing a live stream on YouTube covering some documents in a court case. So he tweets, "If you think my views are that important." And look, I'm going to give the guy a little credit here with the "if you think," because Twitter does not let you just easily edit a typo. I mean, it's very easy to just make a quick typo on Twitter, and then it's stuck and you can't do anything with it. So I'm not going to give him a hard time for that. So he says, "If you think my views are that important, why don't you pick up the phone and call? My number isn't hard to find, but to help you out." And then he lists his phone number. And then some sort of emoji. I can't tell what kind of emoji this is. It looks like it's like a smiley face that's hiding behind some clouds or something. I don't really understand what that means. If anybody knows, leave a comment. Let me know what that emoji means. And then there's a reply to that. Let's check that out. It says, "FYI, I'm not listening to the live stream anymore. Was on it for a couple minutes, but wouldn't let me comment since I'm not a subscriber." Well, there's an easy solution for that. You just hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost any money. It's free. And then after a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, you can comment in the live stream chat. So there's a very simple solution for that problem. Let's see. Then he says, "Laura gave me," this is his client in this court case that they are involved in. "Laura gave me specific permission to talk to you, but that wouldn't support your narrative. So go ahead and give your one-sided version." Now, my thought here is this is kind of weird because if you are on YouTube and you're reading court documents from a court case, so there's a petitioner in the court case and a respondent in the court case. Both of those parties, the petitioner and the respondent, are filing court documents. So when you read through those documents and try to analyze them and understand what's going on in this court case, you are doing commentary on, I guess, two sides of a court case, the petitioner's side and the respondent's side. So there's no one-sided version. Now, somebody may read court documents and come to a conclusion or an opinion of their own about that court case. And of course, that would be a personal opinion or a personal conclusion. And if you want to call that one-sided, I suppose you can, since a singular person, by the law of identity, is one person, and they will have one opinion or one conclusion. But to say it's one-sided to commentate on all of the documents in a court case is disingenuous, I think. I don't think that makes much sense. It's not logical. Okay, and then I think nobody called him on his phone, so he posted a cricket emoji. That's my take there. And what we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to go through these tweets, and then I'm going to go through the comments as well, or the replies, because that's where things get sort of more interesting. So let's get up here. Who to follow? There's some interesting people here. So then 13 hours ago, he says, "Weird that Lethal Lauren 904 asked me to DM her, given that she blocked my DMs. Gaslighting is real, y'all." I don't think, and again, I'll forgive him the typo on misspelling y'all, but because it's Twitter. And in this thing, it says you can no longer send direct messages to this person because, yeah. So if you go back to the live stream and watch the live stream that Lethal Lauren 904 did on YouTube, she actually mentions that she's blocked this lawyer on Twitter. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't DM Lethal Lauren. Okay, Twitter is not the only social media platform in existence. Proof by refutation would be you could DM Lauren on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snapchat. You could send an email. You could even write a letter on a piece of paper and mail it to her at her mailing address that is on her YouTube page. Okay? So the idea that the only way you can DM a human being on Earth is through Twitter is just wrong. It's just not correct. Now, he claims gaslighting here, which is a hot buzzword everybody seems to like to use. And I'm going to explain why this doesn't make any sense. When you gaslight someone, what you're doing is you are lying on purpose in order to make the other person question reality. So if I have a bunch of my friends come over and they see this chair behind me, this leather chair, and we're hanging out, we're watching a football game, whatever it is. And then 2 weeks later, one of those people, let's say it's Nick. Nick comes over, and I have purposefully removed this chair from the house, and I have hidden it. And when Nick comes over, he says, "Wait, wasn't there a chair there? And now there's maybe a potted plant." And I say, "No, Nick. There's never been a chair there. It's always been a potted plant." And then Nick is scratching his head because he's like, "I remember it. I sat in the chair and watched football. Now there's a potted plant there, but Bruce is telling me there was never a chair there. Am I going insane?" That is gaslighting. When Lauren on her live stream literally says, "I have blocked this person on Twitter," and then you show the evidence that you are blocked on Twitter, that is consistency. That is not lying. So there's no gaslighting here. Clearly, you can DM someone in a myriad of ways. And merely not doing it or being too lazy to try is not an excuse, and it is not gaslighting. Okay, so that's that post. Let's move on. Again, the guy is just posting his phone number over and over again. I don't know a lawyer that would post their personal cell phone number to social media. That seems ill-advised. Obviously, of course, we do not recommend anybody call this person or text this person or interact with this person in any direct way. Doesn't make any sense. But the post here says, "My cell phone number, call, text, send love, send hate, whatever." I mean, this guy sounds a little lonely. Debate is the greatest sunlight. I mean, I suppose. I think to debate, you have to have a question. And I don't know what the question is yet here. In order to have a debate, you have to have some sort of question or some claim that you're trying, one person has one claim and another person has another claim. And then you bring up your evidence to support your claim. I don't have any claims in this court case. I am an observer of the court case, and I don't have any positive claims to make. I am looking at the claims made in the court case, and I'm trying to decide for myself if the evidence presented related to those claims warrants an opinion on my part. Okay. And then he says, truth is found this way. Well, truth is really found through the scientific method and doing experiments and creating a hypothesis and disproving the hypothesis and creating theories out of experiments and doing hypotheses using the scientific method. That's how we find truth. Things are true when there is sufficient evidence to warrant belief in those claims. So the key there being sufficient evidence. And I don't think a debate is going to create new evidence for a court case that has already been ruled on. So that's kind of interesting. Now, then he says, weird that I support this, but the other side completely, totally, absolutely does not share that view. Well, I mean, he is a lawyer for a petitioner, so the other side would be the lawyers and the respondents in his court case. But he's tweeting at somebody on YouTube who is not a respondent in the court case. So he's attributing a side to somebody who is not an active party in the court case. So that is a non sequitur and doesn't make any sense. And then he has the pondering emoji. I think he needs to ponder this a little bit more and try to use logic to figure out what he's trying to say here. Okay, so then we've got the parent tweet. And Twitter is so weird in terms of how they order things and how you can see things. And when you click things, what are you seeing? But we're going to try, guys. Anyway, so he says, I've been quiet about the Owens v. Eckert case for a while because I'm busy with other things. And this is an interesting thing to tweet because nobody asked him if he was busy or not. Nobody asked him why he was quiet or why he wasn't quiet. It just sort of seems weird to come out of nowhere with a statement. I don't know why this is happening. Again, it's a little bit of a non sequitur. It doesn't make any sense. But since the other side, and here he goes again with this inflammatory language of sides, there's no sides. Lauren Knighty on YouTube is not a party in this case. I'm not a party in this case. Neither of us are on a side. We aren't a respondent or a petitioner in any of these legal matters. So there's no sides here. Has revived the discussion lately. Since the other side has revived the discussion lately. That's pretty strange as well, because as far as I know, people on whether it's Reddit or Twitter or YouTube or wiki pages or anywhere have been discussing this court case, this Owens v. Eckert case. And it's been pretty nonstop. Revived kind of implies that there was an ending and then it kicked back up again, but I don't see that as being correct. So from a temporal perspective, this sentence fragment makes no sense to me. Let's keep going. Let me throw this out there. I will debate, and again, I don't really understand what there is to debate because he's not saying what the debate topic is. What is the debate topic? There's no question. I mean, the case has been ruled on. The evidence is in the court filings, and anybody can go read and interpret the court filings as they would like. Now, maybe you could have a discussion with someone about them, but I don't know what we're debating. And then in parenthesis, it says, or answer questions from. Well, that's interesting. But I mean, at this point, since the case has been ruled on, and basically, people are waiting for the day when we've determined if there's going to be an appeal filed or not. I don't know what sort of questions people might have. I mean, I don't really have any questions. If there's new evidence, we would like to look at it. But all the evidence is kind of out there, and we've drawn conclusions about it. Let's see. I will debate or answer questions from any JFC crew anytime, anywhere. Just call. Let's do this. It seems strange to me that a lawyer would want to talk to random people in the public as opposed to simply talking to their client, talking to opposing counsel, and filing motions for their court cases. If I was a lawyer, that's all I would want to do. Talk to my client, talk to opposing counsel through motions, through the court system. That's it. I don't really understand why this guy is on Twitter. I don't understand why he wants people to call his cell phone number or text his cell phone number. I don't understand what questions he's anticipating. I don't understand what he wants to debate. This is all just sort of, I don't know what to do with it. It's useless information, or it's a useless post. Okay, and then 12 hours ago, he says, thanks to the folks who reached out privately with questions about what Lethal Lauren 904 said tonight. Praying hands emoji. Well, okay, what were their questions and what were the answers then? Where are they? Can we see them? What were those questions and what were the answers? This is a claim. that folks reached out privately with questions, but there's no evidence of that. That's very strange. Okay, trust me, I get why Lauren and others won't talk. Well, I mean, Lauren was doing a live stream, so she was talking quite a bit. So maybe he means won't talk to you. Well, maybe because the general public should not talk to or engage directly with lawyers in a court case, the petitioner or respondent side. Like, there's no reason for random arbitrary people that are following a court case to interact with the legal teams of the petitioners or the respondents. There's no reason. Everything should be documented as evidence in the court case through filings. And then people can read the filings and come to their own conclusions. So this doesn't make any sense. They love their one-sided version of the truth. That's a very strange sentence, because in general scientific terms, the truth is what we sort of all agree on in terms of a conclusion we've come to through the scientific method. Okay. There's no different versions of the truth. Human beings can have different versions of testimony. Human beings can have different memories. Human beings can have different opinions. Okay. But there's no such thing as my truth, your truth, Nick's truth, different versions of truth. A claim is either true or it is not true, fundamentally, through foundational logic of knowledge. Okay? So this kind of sentence is very rhetorical and loaded in order to make people have an emotional response. It's very strange. And it doesn't have anything to do with epistemology. It doesn't have anything to do with science. It doesn't have anything to do with reason or logic. Okay? It's just a sentence designed to evoke an emotional response. All right, the next sentence says, this is what liars want. Well, okay, if you're going to call someone a liar, you have to explain how they lied. So, for example, if I were to say here, there's no leather chair behind me, and it's very obvious from this video that there is a leather chair behind me, that would be great evidence of lying. If you're going to claim someone is a liar, you need to show the evidence for that claim. Okay, and there's no evidence here. I don't know what he's saying, who's lying, why are they lying? I don't know. Their version and nothing else. I mean, again, in the videos on YouTube I've watched of people covering this Owens v. Eckerd court case, people go over all the court documents that they can obtain. That means that they are going over the petitioner's side and the respondent's side. Okay? Now, if somebody draws an opinion or a conclusion and they say, I don't believe the petitioner or I don't believe the respondent, then that is their opinion. And they are free to have that opinion. And anybody else is free to come to a different opinion and explain why. And so far, if this lawyer here has a different opinion, he has not explained why in any of these tweets starting from last night. So that's a little disappointing. I'm a little disappointed. And then he ends it with saying, because money. Well, here's the thing. If somebody were to only go over one side of a court case, like the petitioner's documents only and not the respondent's documents, or the respondent's documents only and not the petitioner's documents only, they would have maybe half the content that they would normally be creating. So it doesn't make any logical sense for somebody analyzing a court case or commentating on a court case to only go over one side, because they will be limiting themselves to half the content. And if you limit yourselves to half the content, you're limiting the monetary value of your content. So if the motivation here truly is money, then the motivation will be to cover all sides of a court case. So I don't understand this tweet as well. It doesn't make any sense. All right, let's keep going. Oh boy. All right. So for the handful of people who care, I mean, this guy is tweeting like, I don't understand. He says there's only a handful of people who care. I mean, where's the proof of that? Like, does he have an Excel spreadsheet listing all the people who care? Has he done a survey? Like, what? This statement, this preamble, like, nobody needs a preamble. Just get to the point. Just get to the point of the facts and the evidence you want to present in your tweet. This preamble has no information. Who is this handful of people? How have you proved that there's only a handful of people who care? Maybe, what is a handful quantitatively? This is a qualitative statement. This is not how we do science, guys. This is not how we prove things. This is not how we prove claims. It's just disappointing. All right, Laura and I plan to do a streaming video soon to explain her side of the story. Okay, I mean, my first thought here is that this is a little late, okay? If you filed a court case or went to the press roughly a year ago, then that is the time to tell your story. I mean, it's just late now. It's too late. Like, all the court documents are done. You can't, you've already told your story in court. It's over. I don't understand what a new video would do unless there's some sort of magic new evidence to present. In which case, you were too late presenting this evidence because your court case is over. And my understanding with court cases is that in an appeal, you cannot introduce new evidence. You can only discuss, the logistical details of the case that already occurred. Okay, so I don't know what good a streaming video would do. I mean, perhaps it would be some interesting commentary. Perhaps we'd get some insight into some psychology of what someone was thinking at a particular point in time during the case. But I don't understand how explaining a side of the story at this point is going to do any good. All right, this will include the participation of a JFC rep. TBD. Okay, I don't think there's a rep for arbitrary people across the internet, across the world, watching a court case. It's not like a dock workers union where you can find the union rep, okay? So this language to me is very strange. It doesn't make any sense. There's no representation. Nobody represents me. I don't represent anybody else, okay? I'm an individual with my own opinions and conclusions about this case. That is all. There's no organization. There's no org chart with a reporting structure. This doesn't make sense. We want to do this next week, subject to my schedule, okay? So that's fine. Go get a YouTube channel and do a live stream. Nobody's stopping you. I will update when details are finalized. Okay, so there's a plan here, I guess, or at least a notion of a plan. Interesting. Let's keep going. So we're at the top. So we need to go over to the replies because I think that's where it's really going to get interesting. Oh my gosh, maybe we'll start at the top and go down. Oh boy. Okay, so let's find some replies and take a look at them. This is going to be a long video, guys. Okay, so Jackie Blue here says, better yet. And this is the problem with Twitter. When you look at these replies, there's no context to what people are replying to. It's just sort of arbitrary, but we'll try to make some sense of it and muddle our way through. We'll do what we can. The threading here is not the best. I remember LiveJournal back in the day. That was started in the Pacific Northwest. And that had a really good threading scheme because all the threads could go on and be collapsed, and you could find them very easily and read them in context. But anyway, I digress. So Jackie Blue here says, better yet, watch the trial. It was recorded live. Yeah, that was on June 10th, 2024. Because in court, she admitted she lied. Okay, so then Jackie Blue says she won't on whatever S they stream on. Okay, so Jackie Blue is basically saying they don't have confidence that a David Gingras, Laura Owens live stream would be very truthful, is their opinion. And then David Gingras says, that wasn't a trial. It was entertainment for the judge's dad and sister, nothing more. Now, this is interesting because this first sentence here, that wasn't a trial. I mean, you can argue about the semantics of whether you want to call it a hearing or a final hearing versus a trial. I mean, it was a family court case. I mean, I would prefer to call it a hearing or a final hearing. A trial sort of implies maybe it's a criminal trial or something like that, or a civil trial. This was a family court case. So you can argue the semantics about whether it's a hearing or a trial, but it's an indisputable fact that there was a hearing/trial on June 10th in Maricopa County court system. So there was literally a trial/hearing. So this first sentence is just wrong on the face of the facts of the history of this case. You can go to the Maricopa County court system and get the documents related to this case and obtain proof that a trial/hearing occurred on June 10th. So this first sentence to me is very strange. I don't know why someone would say there wasn't a trial or a hearing when there clearly was as a historical event. It's very odd. Okay, and then he says it was entertainment. Well, okay, so there's this HBO show where they get a reality guy to come in and there's like a fake trial and he doesn't know it's fake, but everybody's an actor. And that's a TV show. And that's produced by Hollywood or HBO or Netflix or whoever made that show, okay? That's not happening here. There was a literal trial on June 10th. I just don't understand this reply. It just boggles my mind. He seems to imply that the judge having a father and a sister means that the trial shouldn't be valid. To the best of my knowledge, judges in court can have relatives. Judges in court can have relatives who attend public hearings. Judges in court can have relatives who follow celebrities on social media. None of that means that the judge's activities are in any way inappropriate or invalid, or that it wasn't a trial/hearing. This is very strange. Now, if this guy, this lawyer here, has some sort of evidence, like maybe the judge sent an email to the dad or the sister saying, I'm going to throw the case one way without considering the evidence. If there's such an email like that or a communication, then that would be interesting evidence of judicial bias or judicial misconduct. I have seen no such evidence in this case. If that evidence exists, he needs to bring it to the docket, bring it to light, because it isn't illegal or unethical for a judge in a United States court system to have relatives who behave like normal human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. So this reply to me is very strange. I don't understand it. Let's keep going. We talked about this post. Let's see. Somebody asks, would you be open to questions being submitted if done politely? There are a few big questions that have never been answered by her side. Okay. And then his response is, absolutely, send whatever questions you want. Okay. And again, this is very strange because I don't understand why the lawyers for a petitioner or respondent would be wanting to do like a Q&A or an AMA with the public. Put your evidence in your court filings and litigate your case through the court. Litigating your case through the court of public opinion is not in accordance with the scientific method. It doesn't do anything. It's not evidence will convince people, not cute Q&As on Twitter or Reddit. I don't understand. I don't understand his strategy here. All right, let's see. Let's get some more. Oh boy, there's a lot of comments on this one. Let's see. How ironic. The discussion was revived because your client decided to drop an article now blaming it all on autism. Newsflash, autism does not make people do bad things. People do bad things because they are bad. She lied and cannot take accountability for her actions. And there's no reply to this this comment here. I don't know why there's no reply. In any case, B Max here says, he's lying and baiting you, Swedish. I don't know why I can't see more replies on this thing. This thing's interesting. Oh, here's Swedish Scientist. I don't know who that is, but oh yeah. I see. We have to scroll up. This makes sense. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Swedish Scientist says, what fake name did Laura use at Planned Parenthood? She has claimed she went to Planned Parenthood on 3 different dates, 3 different locations, said 2 different dates at trial. First said anonymous, and then said fake name. Changed the location on the day of trial. By any standard, that is wildly discrediting. Because she never went, she lied. And then Swedish Scientist says, she never addresses this in her many Medium articles because it is such an obvious indicator of her blatant dishonesty. And then David S. Gingras replies, or maybe, just maybe, there is a different, completely logical answer. Okay. I'd give it, but sweet Judge Julie Final Rose Mata said that we are only allowed 140 characters to answer such things, so I guess that means you win. Rose emoji. Now, this is strange. This is a very strange reply because Swedish Scientist here has come up with a few interesting questions about, did this Laura Owens go to Planned Parenthood? Was it on a particular date? What was the location? And all these details. And these are details, that could be dealt with through evidence. You go to Planned Parenthood, you get the records. You can't go to Planned Parenthood anonymously. If you used a fake name, what was the fake name? Where are the records from the Planned Parenthood provider that match Laura Owens or that match this fake name? Where is the evidence? So David here says that he has potentially a different, completely logical answer. Okay, that seems fine. But then he refuses to give that answer. And it doesn't make any sense. If you have a logical answer, then give it. State it. Put it on Twitter. Put it in a blog. Put it in a video. Put it in a court filing. Give the different, completely logical answer. Don't tell people you have an answer. Don't tell people you have evidence and then refuse to give it to them. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand this at all. He starts to talk about how the judge says he only has 140 characters. Now, in the early days of Twitter, which, we're looking at Twitter posts here. In the early days of Twitter, there was a 140 character limit. I think that is what he's referring to here. But that character limit was changed. And also you can make multiple posts. So there's really no character limit. You could create a Twitter account and write 240 character tweets all day long and write a novel if you want. So there's no limit. Also, that limit is imposed by the user interface of the Twitter website or the Twitter app. It is not imposed by a judge in a court case. I have no idea here what he is doing, conflating the judge with the user interface of the Twitter platform. This is a complete non sequitur. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what he's doing here. And then BMax says he's lying and baiting you, Swedish. Sweet Julie didn't say anything about character limits. Gingras is blowing smoke again, per usual. There's no answer. Laura has no logic. She lives in her own little world of make-believe. The end. Crown emoji. Well, And then, I don't know, I guess there's no, oh, there is a reply. There's more replies down here. Yeah, and again, I will give BMax the benefit of the doubt, just like I gave David Gingras the benefit of the doubt when it comes to typos. He says it's Gingras, not Gringus. But of course, it's so easy to make typos on Twitter, and then you want to go back and edit them, and you can't because there's no edit post or edit comment button. So I don't know why he doesn't give them the same grace that I've just given him. But in any case, then he says it's a French name. I know it's not easy to spell or say. And then this looks like a flag emoji with the flag of France. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I mean, he doesn't talk about the 140 character limit or what the judge has to do with that. He fixates on a typo that is irrelevant. None of this. It's doing nothing for me here, guys. Let's see. BMax says, this is my fictional story, David. I like Gringus, so Gringus it is. Oh, maybe it wasn't a typo. Maybe that's just BMax. It's just like, I am using my own lingo. I mean, what can you do? And then Swedish Scientist says, oh, I know his game. I think it's important to let him expose himself. Yeah, I mean, that's why we're going over these tweets, because, maybe somebody in the comments section can make it make sense. I don't know. But to me, there's a lot of non sequiturs here and a lot of claims with no evidence. And that just doesn't do anything for me. If this guy wants to get me on his side, he's going to have to come with logical arguments. He's going to have to come with evidence. And he's going to have to actually write it up instead of just saying he has it and then not writing it up. That's really what it's going to take. Okay, let's see if we can go back in this interface. I don't know. All right. Let's see. Nancy SV says, other than the HCG tests, what proof is there of the pregnancies? We all know there are several reasons one might have HCG in their system. Pregnancy is only one. If she knew she was high risk, why didn't she get this pregnancy confirmed? Okay. And then his reply is, I was just on the phone with Laura, and rather than debating this issue on Twitter, I mean, it's not really a debate. Nancy just asked a question. That's not a debate. That's just, hey, I have a question. This is very strange. This is very strange language he's using. I was just on the phone with Laura, and rather than debating the issue on Twitter, I think the plan is to do a live stream debate ASAP that will include Laura and a JFC rep. Again, a debate about what? What is the question that is being debated? What is the position that is being debated? It doesn't make any sense. All the evidence we already have. You don't need to go to a debate and make an argument. The court case already occurred. The argument's already occurred. It doesn't make sense to try to litigate the case, I guess, in the public space. Why? Let me firm up the details, and I'll post this when we figure out how, when, where. And then justiceforclayton.com says, wait, did the appeal get denied? And he says, no, appeal has not been filed yet. I mean, if I could give this lawyer some advice, it would be just get off Twitter, talk to your client, file your motions, work with opposing counsel, whether that's through motions or emails or whatever, and just finish your case. You don't need to do PR. You don't need to litigate this in the court of public opinion. It doesn't help because you're not presenting evidence. It's just coming across as anger and non sequiturs. Those aren't doing anything for me. They aren't giving me any new information to let me change my opinion or change my mind. It's very strange. It's very strange. Okay. Let's keep going. Swedish side, and hopefully I can find, there's some specific comments in here I want to get to, and hopefully I can find them. I don't know. There's a lot here, guys. Swedish Scientist says, I hope people see this guy as completely disingenuous when he says he wants to talk and give people the truth. I have asked relevant, reasonable, and germane questions, yet he just wants to posture as having answers. He doesn't want to actually answer anything. Pathetic. And I don't know if I would call it pathetic. I would call it disappointing. It's disappointing. I mean, we've already seen examples where people ask questions and he doesn't answer those questions, or somebody had a question and he nitpicked a typo without answering any questions, or he claimed he had an explanation for something and then wouldn't provide the explanation. We have seen these examples, and to me, they aren't pathetic. They are just disappointing. I'm disappointed because a lawyer should do a better job representing their client, because their client is depending on their lawyer to help them to the best of their abilities. Okay? So I am disappointed in his ability to provide compelling evidence for his client's position, at least from what we've read so far here. All right. And then he says, David Gingras says, this response screams 100% Greg. So I guess David Gingras thinks Swedish scientist is Greg Gillespie. I don't have any evidence of that. I don't know why he would think that. Maybe they're using similar adjectives. But even if they are, there's a lot of people in the world. Some of them may use similar adjectives, some of them may not. This is a very strange thing to claim. To make a claim that a Twitter account is Greg Gillespie when you have no evidence other than, well, maybe it sounds like it. That's not good enough evidence. That doesn't rise to the level of compelling evidence. And then he says, I'm still happy to talk to you, my man. You have my number. So he basically is going to stop entertaining this person's questions and just claim they're Greg, and then talk to that person as if they're Greg, even though we don't know if that person is actually Greg. This seems disingenuous. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Nancy SV says, I have one question. We already saw this question. I think, why did she use, this is a new question from Nancy SV. I have one question. Why did she use fake sonograms? If she really had gotten an ultrasound done at Planned Parenthood, she would have had her own. Why did she take some off the internet? Okay, so Nancy asks a question here, and David's response is, at least I think he means as, that's another typo, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. As it relates to Clayton, there is no evidence Laura copied this from the net. Well, what is this? So my understanding is that there are 4 ultrasounds that we have seen in different court filings or throughout this case, in emails, in communication between different people in this case. The first one we call the Fiverr ultrasound, and that was part of the Greg Gillespie case, and that was a fake sonogram. So that's what Nancy is referring to here. The second one is what we call the Reality Steve sonogram, and this was sent to Reality Steve. This was put in a public Dropbox by David's client, Laura, to the best of my knowledge. And that one was also determined to be stolen or a fake sonogram. And that was part of the OOP/IAH series of cases between Clayton and Laura. I think David is correct in that that was not necessarily a part of the case in the paternity court filing. So David is trying to narrow his scope here to only talk about the court filing with the paternity case rather than any other legal action. Whereas I think Nancy is taking a broader look and looking at the pattern of behavior here with fake sonograms. Now, the sonogram that did come up on June 10th was what I would call the ghost sonogram. And presumably that was claimed to have come from a Planned Parenthood. The problem is no Planned Parenthood provider would ever send that sonogram to Clayton's lawyers. So in terms of compelling evidence, that does not rise to the level of compelling evidence, for my opinion at least, in terms of that ghost sonogram. that ghost sonogram, who knows if it's fake or not? Who knows if it's stolen or not? We just don't know. We don't know where it came from. In testimony on June 10th, Laura said that came from LA Planned Parenthood on a Sunday. But of course, people found out that these LA Planned Parenthoods aren't even open on Sundays. So that's very suspicious. And I think that's what Nancy is alluding to here. All right. And then there is a fourth sonogram, which I would call the table sonogram or the sister sonogram or something like that for shorthand. And that was sent to Dave Neal at some point, which was useful in illustrating how there are so many different stories or timelines or claims in this case that don't really match up or make much sense. So that's the fourth sonogram that I'm aware of. All right. In any case, let's see. So David says, at the same time, I have always said I do not like the story and I don't endorse or modifying the Planned Parenthood sonogram. That's fair. This doesn't mean she wasn't pregnant. That's fair. Yeah. If we don't know if she was pregnant or not, we need to prove it with evidence, compelling evidence for a court case. It has to be good evidence. If somebody walks up to me on the street and says, hey, I'm pregnant, I'll say congratulations and continue on with my day because their claim is pretty mundane. Lots of people get pregnant in the world. There's like 8 billion people out there. They all got here somehow. And that's kind of a mundane claim. Now, if you say you're pregnant, you take someone to court over it, now we're making something more than a mundane claim. And we're going to need something more than mundane evidence, like testimonial, word of mouth, some photos, some positive HCG tests. We're going to need very good evidence of pregnancy and paternity when you file a court case. And that's where we are. Okay, so that was that comment. Jen here says, can you stream it? Presumably they're talking about some sort of Q&A session or live stream or whatever they want to do. David says, Laura wants to do an interview, and yes, we will stream this when it is ready. Probably won't beg for money like Laura's haters. I mean, I don't know. There may be people that hate Laura. There may be people that don't hate Laura. I don't know. If you want to know if somebody, I don't know, Jen, or like who, Lauren, Dave Neal, me, the Tilted Lawyer, MG Law, if you want to know if those people hate Laura, why don't you ask them if they hate her or not instead of making an assumption? It's very strange. But I recognize honest work doesn't pay well. Like, I don't understand what that means. That just sounds like a platitude. Like, every cloud has a silver lining. Like, what does that actually mean? Honest work doesn't pay well? Does he have a spreadsheet of jobs that are honest versus dishonest? Like a tab with honest jobs and a tab with dishonest jobs? And then some sort of like how much people make? Is there some sort of cost benefit analysis for what is dishonest work? Wouldn't that be illegal? Is there a cost benefit analysis of going to jail? I don't think going on YouTube and someone sending you a super chat or going on YouTube with a monetized video is dishonest. It's perfectly legal. So this is a very strange sentence he's written. I recognize honest work doesn't pay well. It just doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have any quantitative proof of his claims in terms of what people make and which jobs or what work in life is honest versus dishonest. I just can't, it doesn't make any sense. He's sort of making a claim here with nothing behind it, no substance. We need substance. We don't need platitudes, okay? As many people have shown. Well, what does that mean? As many people have shown? Shown what? That you can make money on YouTube? I mean, that's true. Does that mean they're dishonest people making money on YouTube? If you make any money on YouTube, you're dishonest. If you don't make money on YouTube, you're honest. There's no logical basis for that claim. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Just very odd. Okay. Swedish scientist says, why should we trust her videos? She has admitted to editing/doctoring evidence and refused to turn over her phone for authentication. And you act like it is unreasonable not to believe her videos. Yeah. I mean, if somebody has admitted to fabricating evidence or altering evidence, if someone has been found to have been lying, it's very hard to believe them in the future. I won't say that they'll never tell the truth, right? You can't say that once someone has lied, they'll always lie. You know, somebody could say 9 lies in a row and then say 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, and the final statement is the truth. But the problem is around trust. The problem really is around trust. Trust is hard to gain. You have to gain trust slowly over time through your actions and demonstrating to people that your intentions are good through your actions, because people judge others based on their actions, not on their intentions. Trust is hard to gain. You meet someone brand new, maybe it's at a job, at your work site, and it'll take time before you consider them a trusted coworker or a friend. On the other hand, trust is easily lost. You know, as soon as you betray someone's trust, it is hard to regain. And that's the situation that Swedish scientist here is pointing out. Okay. Now let's see. Then you spin conspiracies about Mike's laptop expert report, Greg hacking her, cults, and etc. And David replies, I am not saying this as a fact. Okay. That's an interesting predicate part of the sentence. Okay. So he's not claiming a fact here. We'll keep that in mind. If I sent a subpoena to Elon Musk, oh boy, what are the chances this account comes back to a guy who had sex with Laura while never allowing her to see his manhood? What? This is strange, guys. Is he continuing this idea that the Swedish scientist account is Greg Gillespie? Because we have no evidence of that. He's just saying, like, what are the chances? Well, it's so weird because he starts his this is a problem with his whole sentence, because he starts it saying, I'm not saying this as a fact. And you would expect him to make a statement after this clause. Instead, he asks a question. I mean, a question is not a fact or a statement of fact. By definition, you don't need to preamble a question by saying you're not stating a fact. A question, by definition, is not a statement of fact. This is just very strange grammar, guys. The grammar here is just very odd. I don't understand it. And then instead of actually, having an honest conversation about trust, which is what Swedish scientist wants to do here. Again, trust is hard to earn. Trust is easy to lose. How can we trust this lawyer's client when they have demonstrably or presumably, at least in my opinion, admitted to doctoring evidence and admitted to lying? Okay? It's hard to trust someone after they've done that. Doesn't mean they can't tell the truth. Doesn't mean they won't tell the truth. It's just difficult. And instead of acknowledging that and trying to work past that, what David does here is he starts to sort of throw this Swedish scientist account under the bus by claiming it's Greg Gillespie, even though there's no evidence of that, and then takes a subsequent step and starts insulting that account, okay, with these pejorative claims like, oh, well, why didn't you let this other person see your manhood? Are you embarrassed by it? I mean, what does this have to do with the case? What does this have to do with facts? What does this have to do with anything? It's almost like he's just trying to get this person to go away by insulting them and being rude to them, which again, I just find disappointing, because it's not doing anything good in service of his client. It's just being rude on the internet. And being rude on the internet, it's not illegal, but why would you do it? It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to do that. Okay? This Swedish scientist person is just asking questions. This is kind of exhausting, guys. I'm really trying to get to the comments I wanted to talk about a little bit in more detail, but we'll see where we get. BMax says, you've been slamming margs again, haven't you? And David says, lemon drop martinis, margs are nasty. I don't know. I think, what is a margarita? That would have tequila in it. I like that añejo tequila. You do some barrel aging, smooth it out, age it up. I kind of like that. That's not bad. Also, I don't know, this whole thing like, oh, you've been slamming margs. Like, I don't care what this guy drinks. I don't care if he's drunk off his ass, as long as he doesn't drive. I don't care if he's cold sober. I want evidence, and I want reasonable, logical explanations for what has happened in this court case. That's all I want. And if he wants lemon drop martinis, that's fine. But I'm not getting the evidence or explanations that I want here. So I am disappointed. Not because he's drinking lemon drops, but because he hasn't done his job as a lawyer litigating this case with sufficient evidence. Okay. Swedish scientist says, again, I want to point out there is contemporaneous evidence from a third party showing Laura with a flat belly at the same time she claims her videos were taken of her pregnant belly. This directly refutes her videos, and you refuse to acknowledge its existence. You must be scared of it. So Swedish scientist is saying, hey, there are photographs from Laura or videos, and there are photographs or videos from third parties. These would be like horse jumping competitions, that kind of thing, where in one photo, someone might look pregnant, and in one photo, someone doesn't look pregnant. Now, to me, this whole thing is a red herring because plenty of people, go through life, and it's kind of terrible. Like you're out in public and someone's like, oh, are you expecting? And they ask a lady if she's expecting, and she says, no. Maybe she has PCOS. Maybe she has IBS. Maybe she has gluten intolerance. Maybe she just gained some weight. Who knows? You can't just look at a photo of someone. You can't just look at a human being and say, oh, sure, they must be pregnant. They must not be pregnant. It's kind of irrelevant. It's a big red herring. It's not proof of pregnancy. Proof of pregnancy would be getting an ultrasound, would be getting fetal heartbeat monitoring, and having a consistent OBGYN follow along and document your pregnancy with multiple ultrasounds, multiple reports in a patient portal, going well beyond a photograph, a positive HCG test, or personal testimony. Okay? DNA paternity testing, an actual baby, a report from a doctor or a pathologist about a miscarriage. These would be reasonable evidence. Photos of a belly, whether it's flat or not, I guess it's interesting to talk about, but it doesn't do anything for me. It's sort of off to the side. It's a red herring. And then David Gingras says, Greg, call me bro. I can help talk you through all this. This is kind of funny because he doesn't actually acknowledge the comment. He just goes back to, you must be Greg. And I'm just going to tell you to phone me on the telephone. And I mean, look, guys, I'm straight up kind of late Gen X. Okay. I don't want to talk to anybody on the telephone. And I know millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha and whoever they are that are younger than me. No one wants to talk on the telephone. I don't know why this guy wants to talk on the telephone so bad. I assume it's because he doesn't want his statements on the record. Which, again, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, it seems a little disingenuous and dishonest to only have off-the-record conversations with people. Why not, if you're going to be interacting, why not just answer the question? Disappointing. Anyway, let's keep going. Swedish scientist says, what fake name did Laura use at Planned Parenthood? She has claimed she went to Planned Parenthood on 3 different dates, and we've seen this before. 3 different locations, said 2 different dates of trial. And then he says, Greg, is this you? So we've seen that. We've seen that before. I may have to expand some of these to find the comments I want to find. And then we're back to his original post here. Thanks to the folks who reached out privately with questions. BMAX's reply is, no one reached out to you. I mean, we don't know. We don't know one way or the other because he didn't provide any sort of evidence. BMAX says, you're a liar, just like Laura. I mean, we don't know. Birds of a feather, you both had your day in court to show your evidence. That's true. There was none supporting your side. I mean, their evidence was very weak, is my opinion and conclusion. They had very weak evidence that did not rise to the level of believing a pregnancy, let alone a paternity claim. I wouldn't say no evidence, but it wasn't good evidence. All right, so you continue to pretend there is. I get why. $signs. Okay, I really don't know. Let's see. David says, had polite and respectful convos with several folks, but you think I'm lying? Again, trust is hard to gain, easy to lose. This is a lesson that I think David and Laura could learn. Okay. Yeah, it's a little inflammatory here for BMAX to just say, you're a liar. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. David says, I'm sorry your life is so empty. Well, first of all, how does he know that BMAX's life is empty? Does he follow BMAX around all day, like with a notepad, documenting all the things BMAX does, and then determining that that means their life is empty? How have you proven that someone's life is empty? This is so odd, guys. That this is the hill you want to die on, figure of speech. What does that mean? The hill you want to die on? I think people just want answers. People want evidence. What hill is there to die on? I don't even... As an observer, I approach all these things by starting out and saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Let's see if we can find out. Let's see what the evidence says. That's not being on a hill trying to die on the hill. There's no battle here over a hill. I mean, I'm not a petitioner. I'm not a respondent in this case. There's no hill. There's no hill for me. There's no hill for BMAX. We just have questions. Come on, man. I hope your hate will eventually fade. I mean, that's a bold claim. I think if you call someone a liar, it doesn't mean you hate them. It just means you think they're dishonest. BMAX never said, I hate you, David S. Gingras. Now, if BMAX had said that, then I think David's response here would be valid. I hope your hate would fade. But nobody has made a hate claim. There's no claim. So this is a response to a claim no one has made, which is illogical. Okay, there's no logic here. Basic human decency finds your heart. How do you know that BMAX doesn't have basic human decency in their heart? They're just chatting on Twitter. Again, do you follow BMAX around all day with a notebook saying, look at all these basic human decency things BMAX could have done that they don't do? Like, do you have a spreadsheet? These are just strange claims with no evidence. I won't hold my breath. I mean, okay. I don't know. Swedish scientist says you're deflecting, which I think is kind of fair. The photos of Laura at a horse jumping competition were from the competition website, and the event occurred after she took her alleged belly pics. You realize how time works, right? Bellies don't get big shrink to be flat, then get big again during pregnancies? And I think this is a fair question from Swedish scientist. David S. Gingras responds, I surrender, you win. Laura's belly videos are all fake because she put on tight pants and the belly was not clear in a few pics. Well, okay, so is he claiming that her belly wasn't clear in these horse jumping competition pictures? Because the pictures I have seen were very clear. I mean, these horse jumping photographers, horse jumping people, this is kind of a high-end hobby. The photographers are going to have really good equipment, take really good photos, okay? Sort of trying to brush this off by saying, well, maybe that photo you're looking at wasn't clear. I'm not buying it. Let's see. Then he goes on to say, the debate is over. Well, he keeps talking about having a debate, but now he's saying the debate is over. I don't even know what we're debating. Swedish scientist is just asking a question. How can you have photos that go from a larger belly to a flat stomach to a larger belly over time? It's not a debate. It's a question. How does that work? Because as far as we can tell, it doesn't comport with physics and reality. Okay, so David says the debate is over. Mata's dad and sister win. He goes back to this thing about the judge's relatives, as if the judge shouldn't have relatives. As if the judge shouldn't have relatives who behave like normal, rational, law-abiding, everyday human beings. It's so strange. Good thing the Judicial Code of Conduct has an exception for guys with porn star mustaches. What is he talking about here? Now he's saying that his court hearing should be invalidated because somebody has a mustache? Guys, this doesn't make any sense. What? Is he trying to just develop a stand-up comedy routine? I guess the concept of porn star mustaches is kind of funny, but I don't know what it has to do with anything here. Oh boy, we're never going to find the comments I wanted to get to. Swedish scientist says she never addresses this in her many Medium articles because it is such an obvious indicator of her blatant dishonesty. I think it's true that these, the series of photos or whatever are not discussed in the Medium articles to explain, like, how are you on a horse with a flat stomach? Well, you have these other photos where you're purporting to be pregnant. And of course, a photo of a puffy stomach or whatever is not proof of pregnancy. It's just like a photograph. You could have a bloated stomach or a poofy stomach for all sorts of reasons, not just pregnancy. So it doesn't convince me. I'm not convinced. Okay. Then David says, or maybe, just maybe, and we talked about this before, there's a different, completely logical answer. Well, if there is, why don't you just give it? Why don't you just write it out? Put it in a blog, put it on Twitter, put it in a video. We'll consider your different, completely logical answer. I am prepared. I'm ready. I'm waiting. He says he'd give it, but sweet Judge Julie Final Rose Mata said we're only allowed 140 characters to answer such things, so I guess that means you win. Again, that doesn't make any sense. He's conflating Twitter user interface rules with the judge in a court case. They have nothing to do with each other. This is a complete non sequitur. You weren't prego says, what was the disposition of the baby/babies in Laura's self-proclaimed visibly pregnant belly? This is a good question. Aborted embryos in July do not grow into a visibly pregnant belly in October. That is a great point. Doesn't make sense to me. If it makes sense, if somebody can explain this in the comments, please do. which is when this photo was taken. Yeah, the problem I have is if the embryos were miscarried or whatever in July or earlier, okay, number one, to prove that, you would need some sort of medical evidence, like a series of ultrasounds that show you starting out pregnant, getting to July, and then a miscarriage occurring, and then ultrasounds showing you're no longer pregnant. That would be great proof of an early term miscarriage. And we just don't have any of that evidence in this case. We don't have any of it. On the flip side, if that miscarriage did not occur in July, and we're out here in October or later, 20, 24 weeks of pregnancy, you can't just have a miscarriage at that point without serious repercussions. People have gone septic and died. Beyond a certain point in time, you will have to have fetal death certificates. You may actually need medical attention to help you with a miscarriage that late in a pregnancy. Okay? So to me, it doesn't make any sense. Because if there was a very, very early miscarriage, number one, there's no proof. Number two, why are there all these pictures and claims of being pregnant in October? If the miscarriage didn't happen until October or later, then where, I'm going to be crude here. Where are the corpses? Where are the fetal death certificates? None of this makes sense. Okay, so you weren't preggo, whoever they are. They have a good comment here. Okay. David S. Gingras replies, he says, one request, tell me where you went to medical school. That's all I ask, nothing else. And of course, this is an appeal to authority logical fallacy because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Pregnancy and childbirth is a regular human experience for so many people on the planet. Okay? Let me give you an example. If I come up to you and I say 1 + 1 = 2, you don't say, Bruce, where is your PhD in mathematics? Okay, 1 + 1 = 2 is very basic mathematics. We all understand. Nobody has to have a PhD in mathematics. Okay? During a 9-month pregnancy, where there can be complications or miscarriages or things you do during a normal, healthy pregnancy, I should say, where you actually end up with a baby, these are things that people talk about with their friends, their family, their relatives. You don't need to go to medical school to understand that if you have a miscarriage at 20 to 24 weeks, there will be evidence and complications. You don't need a PhD in the medical field to understand that. Okay? 1 + 1 = 2. You don't need a PhD in math. So what he's doing here is deflecting by using the appeal to authority logical fallacy. I'm not going to talk to you because I don't think you're an authority on this topic. When he hasn't explained what authority you would need to be, a suitable person to talk to about this topic. Maybe the person he's talking to, who was it? You weren't preggo. Maybe you weren't preggo has been through many pregnancies or has had pregnancies in their family and they're well versed on the process. Maybe they understand greatly how it works and what can go wrong and what happens when things go wrong or what happens when things go right. We're not asking for a medical diagnosis here. We're not asking for medical treatment here. You don't have to ask someone where they went to medical school. This is a logical fallacy that does not make sense. Okay. Swedish scientist says, you have also never addressed the photo of Laura at a horse jumping competition where her belly is completely flat. Did we read this already? This was after she supposedly had the big belly and took photos of it. Okay, that's right. Now, David's reply here is Laura has provided video over and over showing her belly during the time in question. Why isn't that helpful for you? Well, he just explained it, because if you have a video of someone with a large belly, but there's a video from a week earlier at a horse jumping competition where the belly is flat, or a week later, or whatever it is, contemporaneously in time, it's just very disconcerting, because you're seeing one piece of evidence that says she has a perfectly flat belly. You're seeing one piece of evidence that says she has a extended or bloated belly. Why isn't it helpful? It's because that presents a contradiction. Pregnant bellies don't change in size that rapidly over like a week's time or less than a week. It doesn't comport with physics and reality. That's why it's not helpful. Also, a photo of a large belly is not proof of pregnancy. It is not clinical proof. That's why it isn't helpful. I don't understand why this is so hard to understand. I know a guy who thinks the earth is flat. Oh, here we go. His arguments are basically copy-pasted from JFC. It's not real, all Photoshop. You cannot debate with crazy. Okay, again, and it's not about debate. So this is where I want to digress a little bit into flat earth, okay? The shape of the earth. We exist. Let's say we don't know the shape of the earth. The answer is I don't know. Person A says the earth is flat. I look around, the horizon looks flat. I'm going to claim the earth is flat. That is a positive claim. The earth is flat. Person B. No, I've done some science. I took some photos from outer space. The earth is a globe. And it's really an oblate spheroid, but I'm just going to call it a globe for simplification purposes here, because I don't want to be too pedantic, even though that's in my nature. Person B is also making a positive claim that the earth is a globe. So both person A and person B are making positive claims that they need to prove with evidence. Each one of them, the burden of proof is on them. The flat earther and the globe enthusiast. If I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not making a claim. Okay? I'm not making a positive claim I have to prove. Okay? Now, the difference, okay, between flat earth in this case is that when we don't know what shape the earth is before we do experiments and figure it out, the answer is I don't know. That's our starting position. The problem is, in this paternity case, the starting position for human beings is not being pregnant. Nobody starts being pregnant. Okay? So the default position for any human being is not pregnant. Then, if someone makes the claim that they are pregnant, then they need to provide sufficient evidence for their claim. And if they do not, then somebody will decide that they don't believe them. That is very different, okay, than the flat earth model where you're just like, I don't know. Okay? You can still say, I don't know, when someone makes a pregnancy claim and say, well, I just don't know. Somebody said they were pregnant. I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. There's humans that are pregnant, there's humans that are not. But once you file a case in the court system and you're claiming to be pregnant, you need to prove it. Because unless you prove it, I have to assume the null hypothesis. I have to assume the most simple, original, basic state machine starting state, which is not being pregnant. I have to assume you are not pregnant when you file a case in court until you prove it. So that is the difference. And here's the thing. Let's do a thought experiment. So he's saying like JFC is like the flat earthers, okay? A globe enthusiast says, look, NASA, the International Space Station, satellites, astronauts on the moon, they've all taken photos of the Earth. You can see the curvature. You can see that it's a globe. And he's correct that some flat earthers will say, well, that's all just Photoshop and it's fake. It's like, okay, what you have to do is you have to find a way to make your evidence compelling, okay? So take a flat earther and take them into low Earth orbit and show them the curvature and have them take the photos. And guess what? You can completely ignore these photos if you really want to convince someone of your globe Earth claims, okay? You just have to do more science. So in history, Eratosthenes determined that the Earth was a globe before anybody could go into space and take photos of it, okay? He is the first person known to calculate the circumference of the Earth, which he did by using the extensive survey results he could access in his role at a library. His calculation was remarkably accurate, within 1%. He was also the first to calculate Earth's axial tilt. So this guy, you know, a Greek philosopher and Greek scholar, mathematician, geographer, was figuring out facts about the Earth without photographs, okay? And the interesting thing about science is that you don't just have to believe that the Earth is a globe. You can go prove that the Earth is a globe, okay? So the University of Austin, Texas, actually has an assignment where they have students go prove the Earth is a globe and measure the diameter of Earth, okay? The way he did this, it's very interesting. Eratosthenes was in Alexandria and he peered into a well, and at noon on a particular day of the year, the sun shines directly into the well, so there's no shadow, okay? But so it goes straight down. But when you're somewhere else, okay, you can figure out what the shadow is, what the angle is at another location. And if your hypothesis is that the sun is out there casting light and shadows, and the Earth is over here, and it's a globe, you can use mathematics to figure out the diameter of the Earth. You just have to have one person at a well in Alexandria and one person at a well far enough away. I guess they went to Sin over here or whatever it's called and went to a different city. Okay. And you can do this today, right? You just need these guys are literally doing this with a calculator, a meter stick instead of a well, measuring tape. And then I guess they want a computer. I mean, you got to write your results down, turn in your assignment, get a good grade in Austin here. But anyway, the angle of inclination of the sun had a different angle of inclination at two different spots on Earth, okay? And then you can just use geometry to figure this out, okay? So flat earthers, you don't even need photographic evidence to convince them. And it's exactly the same with this court case. If you want to go to court and prove you're pregnant and prove someone is the father, you can do it without photographs of your belly in your kitchen. You do it by seeing an OBGYN on a regular basis. You do it by getting ultrasounds and fetal heartbeat monitoring on a regular basis. And eventually, you either have a baby or, unfortunately, if you miscarry, you go seek medical treatment and you will have medical records of your miscarriage, whether it's early or late. Okay? And if you don't have these things, this evidence, then you should not be surprised when people do not believe your claims. So, for example, if I said, look, I look out my window and the horizon's pretty flat, I live in Montana or whatever, I think the Earth is flat. Okay. I mean, you gotta get me the evidence that the Earth is a globe. Or maybe I'm justified in being a flat earther until you can show me the photographs from space are real and prove them. Until you can show me the Eratosthenes well experiment and I can go do it myself and prove for myself the Earth is a globe. The flat earther is not stupid because they look out their window and they look at the only evidence they have in Montana and they say the Earth is flat, the horizon's flat. They just haven't seen enough evidence. If you want to convince them, David, you have to give the flat earther the evidence. You have to teach them the Eratosthenes well experiment. You have to take them into low Earth orbit and go get photographs of the curvature of the Earth. You have to let them see it with their own eyes. You have to show the evidence. And that is the difference here. When there are flat earthers, globe enthusiasts and scientists can teach them the evidence. They can show them the evidence. In your court case, where you claim pregnancy and paternity in your court case for your client, you have not provided the evidence. So it is still rational to say, was this lady pregnant? Was this guy the father in this family court case? I don't know. And if you haven't been given the evidence to believe it, then it is perfectly rational to say, I think the person was never pregnant because the default state of human beings is not pregnant. And until you give me the evidence that shows that they were pregnant, I'm just not going to trust you. That is rational, that is logical, and that is consistent with science, physics, and mathematics. Okay, I think that's it for me. I'm not going through any of these comments anymore. Guys, we've already gone an hour and a half. This is like, 90 minutes. It's like a major motion picture or something. All right, if you've stuck around this long, thank you for your time. I'm Bruce from Oregon. This has been a very interesting episode of the Bruce from Oregon show. There's Something About David, episode 1, hopefully the first, hopefully the last. And we can get back to more fun things like Cat Quest 3, Something About Mary, who knows what, the Golden Bachelorette. Let's get back to it, guys. All right, talk to you later. Thanks for your time.